Lyndon Johnson is conducting the Vietnam War, and he had his share of lies in there too, no question about that, and I'll get to one other crazy thing that Lyndon Johnson did in a second. But he's decided not to run for president again. It's Hubert Humphrey versus Richard Nixon. Nixon is paranoid, and this is according to his own aides, and thinks, oh my God, Lyndon Johnson's going to cut a deal with the Vietnamese to get peace so that Hubert Humphrey can win. So he says, I got an idea. Why don't we jump it there? Now, they haven't 100% traced it back to Nixon. I'm going to tell you who did it and what the likelihood is in a second, okay? There is no question that Nixon campaign aides sent a message to the South Vietnamese government promising better terms if it obstructed the talks and helped Nixon get elected. I think there's a fair argument to be made that that's actually treasonous. How many soldiers died because of that? By the way, of course, Nixon lied to the Vietnamese too. We didn't get a peace deal for years and years after that, and God knows how many soldiers died after they ruined this peace deal. So now let me go back to Nixon's aide who reports on this. Nixon's campaign manager, John Mitchell, he says was, quote, directly involved, his campaign manager. And then he goes on to say, while, quote, there is no evidence that I found that Nixon participated, it is, quote, inconceivable to me, says Huston, that Mitchell had acted on his own initiative. Yeah, no, he decided not to check with the big guy before he went and struck a deal with a foreign government and made sure that we did not have peace before the elections. If you know anything about how Nixon ran his campaign, you would agree with Nixon's aide that it is inconceivable. Okay. So at the very, very least, his campaign betrayed our country. So now, one of the ways they did that was through this woman that Nixon called the Dragon Lady. There's all these things that sound like conspiracies because it turns out they were conspiracies. There's a Dragon Lady, and then Lyndon Johnson had an X-file. I'll get back to that in a second. There was bugging of places. But then you remember back to those times, Nixon, once he got into office, didn't mind bugging people at all and didn't mind breaking into the other party's headquarters, and that's what he got busted for, Watergate, right? And had to resign in disgrace. So in this case, the Dragon Lady, according to Nixon, is Anna Chennault. She's a Republican activist with ties to the South Vietnamese government, sent word to Saigon that it would get better terms if Humphrey lost and Nixon took office, the FBI would discover. So it's not just Nixon's aides that say this, and now we're finding out through the archives, but it's also the FBI that concluded that. Now, one of the reasons that they were able to conclude that is because they had bugged the South Vietnamese embassy, right? And they had also bugged Nixon's campaign plane. Now, Lyndon Johnson had ordered that. He's in the opposition party. That's also egregious, right? But when Nixon won, he put Huston, the aide that wrote this report, and the report has not been released, just the oral history of it has been released. He put Huston in charge of this, and he's a young conservative, and he does this report, and it sounds from the oral history like the report concluded that, yeah, Nixon, you could go after Lyndon Johnson for bugging your campaign plane, but then on the other hand, you'd have to admit that the reason he bugged your campaign plane was because he was pretty sure that you made a deal with the Vietnamese so that we would have more war and no peace at all. Nixon was like, yeah, let's not go after Lyndon Johnson for that. Okay, let's let that one slide.